Hello and welcome to this episode of SALGA TV. The South African municipal elections were held on 1 November 2021 to elect councils for all metropolitan, district and local municipalities across all 9 provinces. These elections were held to usher in the 5th term of the sector since the first democratic local government term after the elections held in the year 2000. In this episode, we reflect on the journey and build up towards the elections. We also get some insights from voters who ensured that they exercised their democratic right and showed up at the polling stations. We get to hear from Mr. Sihle Mamabolo, the Chief Electoral Officer at the Independent Electoral Commission of South Africa. He speaks to us about the mammoth task of organizing the elections. We then speak to Dr Tinahle Zhou from the Public Affairs Research Institute on the overall participation of eligible voters. To start off the show, let's look at what took place at some of the voting stations.
I'm voting because I'm a South African citizen.
I want change.
We can vote for the betterment of education. Crime is stop.
Is it important so that maybe our hot councillor can do the right things?
I'm voting with the hope that we can get new leaders who actually can implement things that are affecting communities.
I believe that my vote has got anything and everything to do with change.
I just want to make my mark and make sure that I elect the right leaders so that they can govern our city of Johannesburg in the right manner, to eliminate corruption and nepotism and make sure that they do deliver when it comes to our services.
Thank you to all South Africans who made sure that they cast their vote to ensure that their voices are heard in making a difference in their communities. Now let's hear from SALGA Chief Executive Officer Sihle George about the role SALGA has and will continue to play in the transition of local government into the 5th democratic term.
If there's one thing that we would require the new public representatives that have been elected today to ensure that they commit to nothing else, but to ensure that they will discharge their responsibilities in a manner that truly serves the people with full sacrifice, with passion, with dedication. And SALGA will walk along because it has to walk along all those new councillors that will be ushered in after today, but also ensure that the officials who must discharge their responsibilities, they do so with absolute commitment, with absolute passion, but also free from influences that have got nothing to do with the commitment to serve our people. So we commit to, as SALGA, to say over the next 5 years, we will place all our energies to improve the system of local government so that it can be better, it can serve our people with professionalism, with humility, but also the duty of care to make sure that we take care of the vulnerable as municipalities, but treat our people very well and rid the system of maladministration and people who are not there to serve the people. So SALGA will be the epitome of that kind of excellence as we go forward, especially on issues where we need to be aggressive on consequence and accountability.
Why is it important for you to come and vote today?
It's very, very important for me because I want to see change in our community and change in our country.
And not a type of change of when it comes to elections and people want to jump around and do things. I think it needs to be like a full thing, like from the first day to the last day. So it's time for a change.
Our correspondent, Bonolo Selebano, spoke to IEC Chief Electoral Officer Sihle Mamabolo to reflect on the journey to the 2021 local government elections.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mamabolo, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Bonolo, and I appreciate the invite to come and appear on SALGA TV.
Thanks once again. Preparations for an election of this magnitude must have taken a considerable amount of time and strategic planning. Can you take us through the journey of how the planning for this particular local government election began?
Well, thank you, Bonolo. The planning started when the commission approached the Minister of COGTA, Dr Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, where they asked her to consider formulae for the determination of numbers of councillors. And that was about July of 2019. And indeed, the minister responded positively and published those formulae at that point. After which, then the MECs in the various provinces responsible for local government had to determine the actual number of councillors in line with the formulae published. And they did that. And that then paved the way for the Municipal Demarcation Board to start the ward delimitation process.
Preparations for these elections must have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. In this regard, can you take us through some of the public health measures that the IEC employed to guarantee the safety of voters at the polling stations?
The IEC engaged with political parties on a protocol, a COVID protocol to be applied in voting stations. It consulted with the National Department of Health, and it received guidance from the Department of Health in terms of the measures that are in the protocol. In brief, that protocol involved the fact that voters, when they got to the voting station, they had to sanitize upon entry. They had to put a face mask or a cloth covering the nose and mouth. They had to social distance, a distance of between 1.5 meters to 2 meters. And we encouraged voters to bring along a pen to minimize the cross-infection of people through the exchange of pens. We also provided pens ourselves because it's our duty to provide stationery for purposes of elections.
From a planning and preparation perspective, what were some of the broader challenges that the IEC experienced in preparing for an election amid a public health crisis?
The biggest obstacle was the phases of the pandemic, because it was not an even stretch of the pandemic. There were stages where we had high levels of infection and stages where the level of infection had receded and so on, which meant that at the height of the phase of the pandemic, we could not work as efficiently as we would because our staff are infected, people have to work from home, family members are infected, people have to do things at the rate that we can't supervise as well as we wanted to. So there was therefore a stop effect to the implementation of the preparation for the election because of the different waves of the pandemic.
The planning and preparation for this year's elections was quite a mammoth task, with a number of hills on the road to climb, but nonetheless, they were largely successful. What is the IEC's key takeaways from this journey?
Well, the key takeaway from these elections that we just had is that start early with your planning, be consistent at the rate at which you execute your plans, and stay together with your partners, SALGA being one of them, the Minister of COGTA, the net joints for election security. It is evident that an election is not only about the Electoral Commission. In fact, an election, it's about all of us in our different configurations, either as organized local government, as government, as security services, as political parties, and so on. When there's cooperation from everybody and when everybody understands their role overall, it makes the undertaking of preparations a lot more better.
Mr. Mamabolo, thank you once again for your time.
Thank you very much, and it's always a pleasure to be on SALGA TV, our partner, a very dependable partner in many of the national undertakings that we have.
Local government elections are very important. If you think about local government, you interface with your municipality literally from the time you wake up, whether you go and shower, whether you switch on your electricity, you're already interfacing with your municipality. And it is that level of interface and understanding the responsibility of your local government.
What I'd like them to do is not think of themselves as a government, like that they are public servants. They work for us.
Somebody who has integrity, who keeps to their word. What they say is what they do. I think that's what we're lacking in our country is, you know, we get told we're going to get this and that, but yet you don't see it.
Somebody who is visible. Uniting people and bringing a community together instead of separating a community into individuals.
Just do a change, just do things properly. I think equal opportunity for everybody. You know, equal opportunity for jobs, equal opportunity for literally everything.
Less corruption will mean more housing, running water at each house, better schools, better hospitals.
I think it's very important. You can't complain about this country if you don't vote.
We have on the line Dr Tinahle Zhou from the Public Affairs Research Institute to give us a general view of the participation in the election process. A warm welcome to SALGA TV, Dr Zhou.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me today.
The 2021 local government elections have come and gone. What were some of the key learnings in the build-up to the elections?
It has been a very trying time, taking into account that we had been operating under very difficult circumstance of being very precarious around COVID-19. But what is most important from my observation is that this was a key learning lesson for us as South Africans, particularly when we have to face with the fact that our voter turnout had tremendously dropped due to various factors. But nevertheless, one of the key things that we do understand is that people had become very disillusioned leading up to the elections. We have seen the kind of issues that were being brought up in the public spaces, in the public discourse surrounding the municipal institutions in terms of delivering according to their Chapter 7 objectives of local government. So that is one of the key factors that really may have contributed towards the disillusion that we have found, even particularly amongst young people during the time of the elections.
Post the elections, we have come to learn that only a few of the eligible South Africans chose to vote. What does this mean for our democracy?
Well, it means a various lot of factors that we will need to consider. First and foremost, like other analysts who do agree, is that, you know, this is not a new phenomenon. I mean, since the period of the late 1990s leading up to the early 2000s, Western democracies have also experienced a rapid reduction in their voter turnout. I mean, the last elections in the UK, some of the county councils and the boroughs had actually got close to only 17% of a voter turnout in a particular district, which is called a county council. So this is really not a new phenomenon. It's something that is expected over the years in a democracy. It's just that South Africa is a new democracy, and we didn't think that it would actually affect us just so recent after 24 years of our democracy. But again, local government tends to have that phenomenon where citizens, when they feel like they are not directly benefiting from participatory democracy, then they start to disengage with the political system. So yes, this really challenges our thinking around representative democracy, around deliberative democracy. In fact, it challenges the understanding of whether we, as a South Africa with a local government state, do we have a state that is legitimate enough to represent the voices and the interests of the electorate. Deeper questions that we should ask is that what kind of a democratic or alternative democratic system should we start looking at? Because other countries have even gone further to explore what we call neighborhood governance, directly elected mayors, in order to galvanize that interest from citizens in order to participate in their democratic processes and be able to directly hold those whom they elect accountable.
The age group of 18 to 35 constitutes more than a third of the population, but we have seen a very minimal participation from this age group. What could the reason for this be?
Again, in South Africa, we are faced with a plethora of socio-economic development challenges. And what is more significant is the fact that our economy has been declining over the years. It has not been performing well. And we've seen a huge rise in unemployment amongst young people, a huge rise in young people not being able to get access to education. That's why we even had the fees must fall being some of the dominant narratives that were coming from young people. So when you have a 57% of your population, which is constituted by young people, not being economically active, and yet they are supposed to be the agents of change in terms of bringing about innovation for the future of this country, and not being engaged in political systems, particularly the decentralized political systems such as local government, where citizens within that age group are supposed to have a voice and be represented and find solutions and work with the local state, then you will find a young group of people being removed or being dislodged from the political process due to this disillusion. But again, we also need to understand that it also takes political parties to come to the table and be able to galvanize or mobilize young people to participate in political processes. That is something that we have fallen short of in South Africa, where our political parties have really not been able to tap into the spaces where young people are actually engaged in, especially in digital platforms, where they would be able to engage young people massively during their campaigning period. And with COVID-19, it could have offered that opportunity to bring them along and start looking for solutions when it comes to socio-economic development issues, but also taking into account that young people also need a form of representation in the political systems.
In your opinion, what is the future outlook of voting in South Africa, more so at a local level?
One of the important things that I think that we should challenge ourselves moving forward out of this election is, how do we get that huge constituency, which is the youth, to start participating in local deliberative democracy? I'm not just talking about your voting perspective of a democratic process, but deliberative democracy in terms of participatory democracy that will be ongoing post the electoral period. I mean, you will be very surprised that, young people in this country, because I do engage with young people, I also consider myself as a young person. I do engage with young people who are less older than I am. When you actually engage them on local government, because I work in the local government space, you find that they don't even have adequate information about how local government systems work. They don't even know how ward committees work and how they could even participate in becoming elected into ward committees or even IDP and budgeting processes. Now, I think that, one should challenge institutions, even institutions such as SALGA, just to do a survey and find out how much knowledge do young people know about local government. And you'll be surprised how little they do know about the institutional systems and the processes of local government. I think the only way we can start salvaging the situation, because it's not going to get any better, is to start really increasing what we call participatory, inclusive systems of local democracy, where young people will be the target in terms of getting them on board in the process of understanding why it's important for them to participate in local democratic processes.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you very much, Dr. Zhou, for having that discussion with us.
If you're not politically active, you're actually making a decision that you must be ruled, or decisions must be taken on your behalf.
Voting gives you the right to complain. Not voting gives you no rights. You're moaning, but people can't take you seriously. I wouldn't take you seriously if you don't vote.
Come out in numbers if you want to see your vote change this country. Get out there, put your mark, get out there and vote.
Not voting, sitting at home is not a good option. Come out and come and vote and demonstrate your rights.
Let's honor our leaders who have fought for our rights to vote and take this thing serious. Vote, register.
The journey towards the 2021 local government elections has been like no other, as these elections took place on the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic, which hampered preparations in a number of ways. As institutions tasked with rolling out these elections grappled with the logistics to keep the electorate safe and keeping the elections free and fair, among many other factors. While voter turnout for these elections have been reported to be at an all-time low, millions of South Africans still exercised their democratic right and headed to voting stations because, in essence, democracy works best when people participate. What remains critical even in this new term is ensuring that municipalities deliver equitable services effectively and efficiently to the communities they serve, ultimately towards the betterment of the lives of all South Africans. From me, your host, Meralda Nisalega Mnand.